Connarton, he's on the scene. He's meaner than nice, but nicer than mean.
I know that voice. Were you listening earlier, Dave?
But I'm not Connarton. Hey, yeah. So yeah, I'm out walking, so I wasn't. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, you weren't
So,
listening earlier?
correct.
Oh, well, it's a remarkable coincidence that you called then, because your name came up earlier.
Oh, good. Well, I guess if they're talking about me, I'm winning.
Well, so I wasn't saying anything critical of you directly. In fact, I said some positive things, but I was critical of this YouTube channel that you've talked about before. This Press NH Now. Do you have a
Okay. What did they do? What did they do wrong?
Well, here's the thing. I've come to a conclusion, Dave. So these videos where there's this newest one, this guy Mark, I don't know his last name. And by the way, not to run him down on a personal level or anything. I don't know him. He might be a perfectly lovely individual. But he goes into, I don't know if you've seen the video. He goes into this office. There's these female employees. He's in there filming them. They politely ask him to leave. They're making it, he's making them uncomfortable. He wasn't leave. The police show up, da, 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 da. And I realized something, Dave. And you've talked about these types of videos before. And I know you go to places and you film, but you go to like public events, or what should be public events, like town meetings and things like that. I don't think you do this type of thing though, do you? Where you show up and make someone uncomfortable and then refuse to leave?
Well, it depends. If it's a government-funded institution, I think he's not only within his rights, but it's probably good to be doing something along those lines. If it's not government-funded, that's different. I think you're just kind of bothering people without a real good reason. But it depends. I mean, if you go into a private, like a private business, and you try to film because the private business committed some act of aggression or something like that, and that's a time-tested thing that mainstream press has done for a long time. Outside New Hampshire, where there's no wiretapping laws, the media will get their hidden cameras, into businesses and
Sure.
film bad things businesses are doing. I'm not sure there's anything wrong with that.
Right. But so in this particular instance, have you seen this video? He goes into, I think it's the Department of Health and Human Services here in Manchester, and he goes in and there's female employees working and he's filming them and he's zooming in on them. And finally they ask him, could you please leave? You're making everyone uncomfortable. And he refuses to do so. And have you seen this video? It just went up in the last couple of days.
No, but the key word there is Health and Human Services. That means he paid for it, so he has a right to videotape what they're doing. Unless I'm missing something.
So I have two problems. Here's problem number one. I think that type of, so in the video, to me, if I were just seeing something like that for the first time, and obviously I've seen other videos like this, but if I were someone who might be interested in the liberty movement, but then I see a video like that, maybe I don't know much about the liberty movement or whatever term you want to give it, but I see something like, but I'm interested, right? But then I see something like that, I'm looking at, the guy comes off like this weirdo stalker in the video, right? He's filming these female employees. He's making everyone uncomfortable. He's not, there doesn't seem to be any productive reason for him to be there. He's just filming them while they do their paperwork and whatnot. It comes off as very stalkerish, especially because he's a guy and it's a bunch of women in this office. And to me, it actually reflects poorly. The optics of it, in terms of how it reflects on the liberty movement, I think are very, very bad. And so I would suggest discouraging that type of behavior. It's one thing to walk into a public meeting, or even a meeting that's maybe private but should be public that the government is holding, or film a police stop because you want to make sure the police are accountable for whatever they do. I can understand all of that. But walking into this office and filming a bunch of female employees who are clearly creeped out and uncomfortable, I think it reflects very poorly. And I think it's bad for the movement. I just think it's bad for the movement. It looks really bad, and it looks creepy, and it looks stalkerish. It's like he's stalking them. That's how it comes off. That's just my opinion. I'm curious what you think.
Well, I mean, you think about it. If you silence people like me, you silence good cops, you're going to get bad cops, right? So I'm censored. I can't get any hits hardly. I don't know what he's doing to get hits. I don't know how he's pulling it off because my YouTube channel, I'm not even allowed to put things on it anymore. Basically,
Yeah.
They threatened me to take the whole channel down if I keep uploading videos. Basically, so I don't really do much Ridley Report anymore. My Ridley
Really?
Report is just called to talk radio, basically. And so I've been silenced, and you're stuck with people like him. So maybe I shouldn't have been silenced.
Well, I agree. I've never seen you do anything like what this guy does. Like I said, the things that I've seen that you've done, I think are perfectly valid. But this guy comes off as creepy. So, but when I look at the YouTube comments below it, and this is why I was curious what you think, but it sounds like you haven't seen this particular video. But people are encouraging him and lauding what he's doing, and it's like, I'll tell you what, if Jenny worked in that office, or if a female family member of mine worked in that office, or a close friend worked in that office, and this guy's lurking around with that camera, the way it comes across in that video, not only might I be turned off by the liberty movement, but I'd be really angry that a female in my life whom I love and care about is subjected to this guy who seems like a stalker. And I just think it's a bad look. And I don't understand why all these people are encouraging him. I think it's counterproductive, and it accomplishes nothing. And there's so many other productive things that one can do. And maybe he could take a lesson from you and do some of the work that you've done, which I think is actually productive and valid, and not just go stalking women at an office, which is how this comes off. It's a bad look, Dave.
Okay, so his misdeed here is that he comes off looking bad. Okay, fair enough. Maybe he does. I've seen some of his videos. He's not as polite as some people. Okay, so he comes off looking bad and impolite. Okay, so let's say that's a strike against him.
Menacing, more than impolite. Dave, let me just tag that just quickly. He comes across more than impolite. He comes across as menacing and stalkerish and threatening. And by the way, it is a hot button with me. I get particularly angry when I see any instance where a man is coming off as menacing or threatening to females. That's a real hot button with me, which is why this video particularly bothered me. He comes across like he is actually stalking them. So I just want to clarify, it's more than impolite. It's not just impolite. It's beyond that. I just wanted to say that, but go ahead, Dave.
I should watch the video before casting judgment on it, pro or con. But let's just assume for the sake of argument that he's menacing.
Yes.
He seems menacing. He has a menacing demeanor. Okay, that's a strike against it if he has a menacing demeanor. But you compare that to the DHS employees, you're forced to pay their salary. They make you pay taxes to them, basically. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that to me. So he's got a long way to go before he's worse than a DHS employee.
Well, it's not a matter of being worse or better than anything. I'm talking about his behavior. I'm not even
what about their behavior? They stole some of your money last year, Matt, and they're going to steal some this year.
So I don't characterize it that way. You can if you like, but that makes it okay to stalk them?
Okay, maybe not, but you can understand why someone would.
No, I can't. I mean, I can't understand that because it would never occur to me to do that.
Again, if you're treating a First Amendment audit on public property as stalking.
How is this a First Amendment audit, though? See, that's the thing. I don't understand this term First Amendment audit. The guy's going into a building and filming female employees while they do paperwork at their desks. How is that? What is being audited exactly? What is the First Amendment audit that's happening here? I don't understand.
Well, the fact that you're attacking it is a justification to some extent for doing it. At least the filming part, not necessarily the menacing part.
I don't understand that at all. The fact that I'm attacking it would justify
the more a right is attacked, the more it needs to be exercised.
Oh, I disagree. But no. So the more I attack this guy behaving like a stalker, the more he should be behaving like a stalker?
Well, I'm talking about the filming.
Yeah, I am too. That's what I'm talking about. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, he goes into a DHS office and films because the reason is, does there have to be a reason?
Does there have to be a reason?
It's his money. He paid for every brick. Well, I mean, he helps pay for every brick in that building and those people's salaries against his will. Of course, he's got a right to walk in there and film them.
So what would he not have a right to do, Dave? What would be the line? Does he have a right to go in there and sexually harass them? Like if he wanted to walk up to one of the employees and begin making lewd comments, would that be okay because his taxpayers, his tax money pays for that? If he wanted to walk up to one of the employees and say something lewd, would that be okay too? I mean, what can, so he can just walk in there and do anything he wants? Because his tax money pays for that building? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I sure wouldn't like it if he was saying stuff like that. But it's good in life to draw a line between speech and action. That's where action. When someone commits an action, that's when you can act against them. But acting against them because you don't like what they say, that's not really supposed to be an American way type of thing.
Yeah, but you shouldn't stalk people. You shouldn't stalk women. If you're a guy, I'm sorry, Dave. If you're a man, you should not be walking around taking video of women with your phone without their consent.
Well, no, the women do not have special rights because they're women. They have the same rights as men. They don't have fewer. They have the same. So, to me, it would be just the same if he was doing this to males.
I disagree, and not to sound old-fashioned, but I think, but again, I have a thing though. I have a very hard rule about you shouldn't do anything that makes women feel intimidated or in danger in any way or uncomfortable. There's just no justification for that.
Each of us is not responsible for how people react to us necessarily. I mean, we're responsible for what we do. Because I had an incident in the State House where I was filming a lobbyist. I made a habit of trying to film lobbyists pretty frequently, treat them the same as state reps to some extent. And I guess one lady took offense to that and came up and tried to cover up my camera. And so, I have this video of her covering up the camera because she was uncomfortable being filmed. Well, she was a lady, but every time I saw her after that, I made sure to film her because she was trying to stop me from filming.
Sure.
And she's my business because she's a lobbyist,
right?
Trying to determine public policy,
right?
And it's not my fault that she doesn't like to be filmed. If she's there in a public place affecting the laws that govern me, I have absolutely got that right to film her, and it's not my problem if she doesn't like it. In fact, it's better if she doesn't. In a sense, it's better if she doesn't like it, because it just reminds everybody how how dangerous lobbyists can be.
But that's not the same thing as going. You would not, Dave. I'd be shocked if you would. So I'm making an assumption here, but you would not go to an office. You would not go to the Department of Health and Human Services and see a bunch of women behind the glass working and just walk up to the glass and begin filming them and zooming in on their faces or trying to zoom in on a computer that one of them is working on and just be like super creepy. You would not do that, correct?
I'd probably only go sort of question to ask, like the department
right.
had done something recently that was
right.
questionable, and I wanted to question everybody that worked at the department.
Exactly.
I think they're all guilty if the department does something bad.
And right.
Because they all work for it.
But that's my point, Dave. And going and doing that would be a perfectly reasonable and productive thing to do. You wouldn't go and just start filming these women and just to film them. That's my point, Dave. And why wouldn't you?
I tend to avoid. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And why wouldn't you, Dave? Because that's super creepy, and you're not a creep. I'm saying the guy guy making this video is a creep. You're not.
I guess I want to have the public on my side.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm deferring to public opinion to some extent there.
That goes to my other point. Yeah, right. That goes to my other point, Dave. This is bad for your This kind of thing is bad for your movement. But for some reason, if you look at the YouTube comments, everyone on this guy's YouTube channel, which has something like 87,000 subscribers, loves what this guy's doing. And it's like, it's like there's no self-awareness there. There's like nobody stops to think, wow, this guy behaving like a weirdo incel stalker might actually be bad for the liberty movement. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe the policy I have, and have you ever heard of Sergej Popovich?
No.
So he's kind of the guy that led the Serbian uprising in 1999 that ended the Balkan Wars. They overthrew their own government and stopped the wars. Basically, it wasn't hardly a shot fired after that revolution. And Popovich, I think it was Popovich, who said, you got to have three things. And I may be quoting somebody else from his same movement. This may be even Yorovich's quote, actually. So even Yorovich said, you got to have, to successfully have a peaceful revolution, you have to have unity, good planning, and nonviolent discipline. So I took that to heart and thought, well, how do we get nonviolent discipline in the liberty movement? You know, we seem to already have it, but how do we maintain it?
Mm-hmm.
So my method of maintaining that is to warn anyone that actually threatens or advocates physically harming government workers. So if someone were to say something like that, like that a government worker needed to be physically harmed, then I would warn them. And then if they do it again, I cut them off. So I'm not going to be writing them any letters in jail. I'm not going to be helping them in any way. They stop existing for me. So that's how I try to help enforce nonviolent discipline. But right. I can't imagine myself cutting somebody off because I don't like their facial expression. You know, their demeanor is wrong, or they were filming and they didn't have a good reason written down somewhere. That to me, that wouldn't be a legitimate reason to cut somebody off.
But I think it's easy to say that when, you or I, Dave, will never be in a position where we're working in an office where there's we're women and there's this dude lurking around filming us. This guy you know what I'm saying?
The DHHS should probably not be disarming its workers. I don't know if workers at that building are required to disarm. I don't think they should be.
That came out of nowhere. What does that have to do with it?
Well, I mean, if you're worried about, oftentimes when you're worried about stalky people, it's because you're not allowed to carry a firearm to defend yourself. And these women may be all disarmed by DHHS, and that could be part of the reason why, if they feel scared, maybe that's the reason why. If they're all allowed to carry pistols to work, I don't think they'd be very scared of them.
Okay. so you think so they should so these women should either bring a pistol to work or it's, and if they don't have a pistol, then it's their own fault for being uncomfortable, I guess.
I just think they should have the right. I mean, I don't think you lose your right to self-defense when you become a bureaucrat. I know that some people in my movement might not feel that way, but I just think human rights go with the person, and they don't go away automatically just because you work for the government or you're in a government building.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit of a different subject, I think, but anyway, I think you and I are closer to agreeing than you might think, because like I said, I'd be curious to hear what you think after you watch the video. And like I said, yeah. I'm quite sure that you would not engage in the behavior that this guy engages in. Like I said, I cannot imagine you doing something like what he did. And the example that you gave of what you might do, where you go in and you have some questions or whatever, I think that's perfectly valid and reasonable, and I would encourage you. But what he did is just creepy and weird, and it yields nothing. It doesn't produce anything other than make these women uncomfortable. There doesn't seem to be any point beyond that. So that was my point.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I might support the human rights of these women, I don't think they have a right to stop him from filming his own taxpayer money in action. How
would you feel? A serious question though, Dave. Suppose you had a sister who worked there in this office, and there's this dude showing up and he's just filming her. and you know, and it makes her uncomfortable. I mean, you'd be okay with it? You just say, well, he has a right to show up and film you. Well, I mean, you wouldn't think you wouldn't have any problem with that?
I would have a problem with my sister working for a bureaucracy.
Yeah, but what if she chose to? You know, it's funny. There is somebody who works there who shows up in the video who I thought was part of the Liberty movement, but maybe she left, which is kind of interesting. But I'm not going to get into that, and I won't say the person's name. But well, maybe you and your sister disagree, and maybe your sister likes working for the bureaucracy, but you still love your sister, right? And she tells
we'll still eat together at Thanksgiving, and she'll be stealing from me every year in between. That's what a taxpayer's salary is. A taxpayer-funded salary is stolen property that you've accepted every year if you work for a bureaucracy.
So based on that, you'd be okay with some dude showing up at her job, filming her, or any job, not necessarily there, but any job. Your sister just has a job.
He'd be within his rights.
She has a job. She works in an office somewhere, and some dude's showing up and just filming her, just standing there filming her, and it makes her uncomfortable. And well, whatever, that's his right. Is that really how you'd feel? There's no part of you that would be bothered by that at all? Dave, are you still there? Dave? Maybe his sister's trying to call him and he had to switch over. His sister's probably like, what? You'd be okay with that? Dave, are you there?
Okay, I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you, yes.
I kicked you, sorry.
Oh, so I was just saying, there's no part of you that would be bothered by some dude showing up at your sister's job and just filming her and making her uncomfortable. You wouldn't think, well, that's not cool, or you just be like, well, that's his right. That's fine, you know.
I'd be uncomfortable with menacing behavior, but
yes.
I'd like to think I would support. I would like to think I would support the right to film.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe we don't. Watch the video. Watch the video and let me know. Let me know at a later time what you think. But I'd be curious to know if you're comfortable with this guy's behavior, and I'd also be curious to know if you think there's anything productive, or if you think that it actually is a bad look. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on the optics of the whole thing, and I don't mean the literal optics of the video itself, but the larger optics, and whether or not it's good for the Liberty movement or not. And I say it's not.
Yeah, if he actually threatens to hurt a government worker, then let me know, and I will issue him a warning for what it's worth. I mean, he's not very dependent on me, but
there's no explicit threat, but women will often feel threatened when a dude is lurking around acting stalkerish. So that's an implicit there's an implicit threat there.
Yeah. Well, I did call with a piece of New Hampshire news if you want it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So, as you know, there were some state reps that ran on an independence platform this year. There were 5 of them I guess there were 9 going into the primary, and 5 of them made it through their primaries. 5 incumbents and 1 challenger.
Okay.
So 6 New Hampshire independents or NH exit reps, whatever you want to call them, and all 5 of them were reelected. All the ones that ran in the general election. And the challenger, Jason Gerhardt, also won election. So we have 6 openly pro-independence state reps in the State House this coming session.
So for newer listeners who might not be familiar, so pro-independence, in other words, they're secessionists. They want New Hampshire to secede?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's progress for those of you who endeavor to have New Hampshire become independent. But all right, you feel good about it?
Yeah, it's an indication that it's not an election issue for people. Really, they're not going to throw you out of office over it. Apparently,
right? That's true. Yeah. All right. Very good.
Yeah. Although I think obviously the primary performance was not very good, but the general election performance was perfect.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
Well, the thing stays alive, and there is independence-related legislation coming up in the coming session. I'll tell you about it in another call.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please do. All right, Dave, I do appreciate the call, and I appreciate the discussion. And do you want to give anything a plug, Ridley Report or NH Exit or whatever it is you'd like to remind people about?
Oh, yeah, just NH Exit if you want to know more about the New Hampshire independence movement.
All right, very good. All right, Dave Ridley, thank you for the call. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome for the call.
All right, bye-bye.